All right. So I want to thank you for allowing me to present this topic. It is a pretty unique topic. I was actually talking with one of my, I guess, SANS people that was helping me become an instructor, or whatnot. I was talking to him about me building this presentation, and he got really excited because he's a pen tester, and apparently he went out on a pen test, and they had this PowerShell JEA um, implementing implemented, and it caused him a lot of pain while he was pen testing. So, so when I first learned about this topic as well, I just found so many. I instantly thought of so many different uses for it. But we'll get into all that here in a few minutes. So a little bit about me. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, there's my Twitter handle and my LinkedIn and my website. You've seen most of this stuff on the right. I think my military service is actually up to 24 now. Spent years and years in the Windows environment. It wasn't until just recently that I actually started dabbling in Linux. So when Sydney referred back to that one-day PowerShell class that I built for him, well, I just recently gave that same class again 2 weeks ago, and I updated it. And so now we talked about PowerShell on Linux, and we actually implemented PowerShell remoting over SSH, where a Linux box was remote controlling or running commands on Windows. To me, it was just awesome. It's great. I enjoyed it, and it's out there on my YouTube channel if you'd like to see it. Some of the things I do in my spare time is I've done SANS community presentations or classes. I just recently wrapped up a 6-month boot camp with Trilogy, working as a TA, teaching cyber security. And I just finished my first semester with Howard Community College as the Network Plus instructor. So that was pretty entertaining, a different experience, if you will. And so that's kind of what I do, and I like to give these presentations, various presentations. I feel that it helps me learn my craft and hone my own craft better, which brings me to how I learned about PowerShell. I'm pretty much self-taught. I was sitting there one day and I opened up this Windows and I seen this little thing said PowerShell. I was like, "What's that?" I opened it up. I noticed it was a terminal, and from that point forward, I just kind of started reading everything, trying to learn everything I could about PowerShell, because I figured if Microsoft was going to put this in there, they were going to make a move to make that their new shell instead of the command prompt. And that was a gamble I took and ended up being right for once. So that was kind of nice. And because of that, my learning of PowerShell, my passion for it just kind of grew and grew and grew. So every time I'm at work or I'm sitting in the office, and we start talking about problems and how to fix it, the words out of my mouth are, "I think I can script that. I think I can automate that." And when I start saying things like that, you can actually look at my coworker's face and they're just like, "Say PowerShell one more time. Just say it," right? So they hear it quite a bit, especially the Linux guys. They really get that look. But it doesn't just stop with my coworkers. No. Me and my son were in the truck one day driving down the road, and we were talking about some things, and he made some comments, and I pretty much disowned him, almost wrecked the truck. It was almost a disaster, right? Because he didn't use PowerShell. Broke my heart. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty much me and my infatuation with PowerShell. So one way to help you guys understand what this PowerShell JEA, just enough administration, is going to give you, I've got a couple of scenarios here that I kind of wrote up, and we're going to kind of use these as examples when I'm talking about various topics. I'm not saying these are real examples. I'm just strongly suggesting that these could really happen. Like you could be in a small IT shop where your developers have full control, almost pretty much the same rights as you do as a systems administrator. because they need to develop the website and develop their programs, and they need the admin rights to do so, right? It happened. Another scenario we're going to kind of look at is, what if you had a third-party contractor that kind of managed your thermostats in your organization, and the centralized server was in your server room, and it could be really, really easy for him to just pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm having issues out of my server. Can you reboot that? Let's say the contractor doesn't want to do that because he's getting paid hourly, when he could just get in his car and travel 15 minutes to your shop and show up standing in front of your desk when you've got 50 million other things to do. And he's just standing there, and you ask him, can I help you with something? He says, yes. Could you reboot my server? You know, let's just say things like that could happen. And those are the scenarios we're going to go with when we're talking about. So I've said the term PowerShell JEA, just enough administration is what the JEA part stands for. So what is it exactly? Well, Microsoft says it's a way for you to delegate anything that you can do with PowerShell down to a common user. So what does this mean? This means some administration tasks that your normal users can't do, we can now give them permissions to do it. If you've ever worked in an Active Directory domain, it's like delegating different authorities down in the OU for certain people. That's pretty much what this is. But if that concept still eludes you, I think Mr. Jeffrey Snover said it the best. He broke it down really, really simple. He's like, think of it this way. Think of it as the keys that are in your pocket, right? So JEA is just like those keys. On your key ring, you have the key to your house, the key to your vehicle. Depending on where you live, you'll have a mailbox key. You might have your office key. If you're me, you've got a toolbox key, right? So you've got all these keys on your key ring, but you want to go out of town for a while. And so you ask your neighbor to water your plants and feed your animals while you're gone. So you could just hand all your keys over, the keys to the kingdom, right? And then so now your whoever's taking care of your house has access to your office, your truck. He can go start a moving company with your truck. He can start a mechanic shop with all your tools because he's got all those keys. So we just divvy it up some. We just give him the key to the house. Hey, you can get into my house, feed my pets, water my plants. You're gone long enough, you may need that person to check your mail, right? So let's just give him the key to the mailbox too. And that's all he gets. He just gets those two keys and that's it. That's kind of like what PowerShell JEA does. You can just give individuals specific commands that they need to run and things like that. Now me, I'm just going to tell you, it's a really, really awesome way to empower your users. I've always enjoyed giving my users the power to manage their own things within safety regulations. There's other topics we can talk about some things I implemented in some products that are never going to leave my former environment. But it's a way to allow the users to manage their own stuff, kind of like they do at home, but when they get to work, they're restricted. So that's just kind of my take on it. So like I said in the beginning, it's just a common way for us as administrators or security professionals to allow non-privileged users to perform privileged tasks. So what do you need to run? What do you need to set up this PowerShell JEA? Well, as of right now, it cannot be run on any of the Linux machines, or it is not compatible with the Linux PowerShell on Linux or the PowerShell on Macs. And the reason being is right now it only works with WMF, the Windows Management Framework, or WinRM. It only works over that. think I read somewhere where they're trying to get it to work over SSH. And if that happens, then I think we'll start seeing JEA over on the Linux side, you know, PowerShell 7 or .core, if you will. So how does all this work? Well, there's a lot of work that goes into building one of these, right? So basically what happens is your user is going to sit down on his desk. He's going to initiate a remote PowerShell session to a server or something like that. And he's going to specify a configuration file. And that configuration file is going to read a roles capability file, right? And that roles capability file is going to tell, is going to show you what he's allowed to do, what that person is allowed to do. And they're doing this kind of like as a run as. If you remember back in the day when we're on the command line, we have to do run as. Well, now in PowerShell, you know, you have the dash credential, and you can supply your own other alternate credentials. Pretty much the same way as what's going on here. So when that session is established, it's going to create a virtual administrator account, and it's only temporary. So the user is going to have a temporary admin on that local workstation for just that session only. But because of that roles capability file, he's only going to be able to accomplish the tasks that are dictated in that roles capability file. And we're going to see an example of a roles capability file and the session file here in a little bit. And then once the user exits out of that remote session, that admin account goes away. But never fear, we're going to set this up so we're logging everything that that user does, and it can be traced back to that same user. So I'll kind of show you a little bit about that as well. So here's that roles capability file, right? This is the file. It doesn't just, you don't just tell it, hey, what commandlets is this person going to run? You can get extremely granular with this. So you can tell it, hey, he can only have these commandlets. And oh, by the way, not just these commandlets, but I only want him to have access to these parameters for that commandlet. And oh, by the way, not just the commandlet and the parameters, but the validation set, the only thing he can use against those parameters are, and then you set up your criteria, right? If you've ever built a PowerShell script, you know, when you're building out your parameters, you can say, hey, the input parameter can only match this pattern or something like that. It's essentially the same thing we're doing here. Is we're building out a pattern that our users can use to go against that parameter, which goes against that commandlet, right? And that it's not just the commandlets. It's if you have any scripts, you can specify those. If you've got any custom aliases, you can specify those. And your external applications, right? If you remember, for those of you who are in my my crash course class, you know, when we talk about applications, we're talking about all the other applications that are outside of PowerShell, right? We're talking about your ping.exe, your whoami.exe, your sc.exe, all those things. Right, so you can specify all those. Now, I have not gotten granular with those on whether you can use their command line switches or not, but just know if you don't specify it, they can't use it, and if you do specify it, and I'd have to play around with the switches to see if we can limit those as well. But this is kind of what it's gonna look like. And we'll look at a real one that we're going to use. But under the part that says visible commandlets, so in this example, they're allowing whatever roles capability this is going to. they're going to get the restart service, if you can see it right here. So that they're getting that service with the name parameter is the only thing that they can have. But they can only restart the DNS service and the spooler service. And I've got an example of this we'll show in a minute. They can also, they've got also another one, restart website with the name parameter, and they can only start the websites that begin with HR underscore. So they can't start any other website unless it begins with the HR underscore. And here's the an example of the external commands. So they're allowing who am I and some, it looks like some custom PS1 script is what they're allowing. So that's all this person is going to be able to do. And that's it. And so here's that session file. So the session file is actually going to create the virtual admin account. It's going to look at that roles capability file. It's going to see what you're allowed to do and only present that back to you. So when it does create that virtual admin account, it is a local admin on that local box, right? And it knows about every single command and every single application on that box, but it's only going to show you what you're allowed to have based on that roles capability file. Right. So for the demo, we're only going to use the the automatic virtual account, and you can still trace that back to a user. But you can specify your own virtual accounts, and you can use managed service accounts if you need access to network resources, right? But just know it's going to be harder to trace that back to a specific individual if you need to do anything. So here's kind of what that session file looks like. You're going to establish it with the new PS session configuration file. You're going to give it a name and a path. So are you going to use the virtual administrator account? True. That's what we're going to do. And here's how we're going to log everything that they do. We're going to establish that transcript. And I may forget to show it to you, so somebody might need to remind me to show you the transcript, and so you can see how to trace that back. And then this is how you tie the individuals to the roles, the role-based capability file. So the JEA DNS admins are going to get, they're going to be able to use this role capability and this role capability and this role capability. So it's a combination of all three, all right? And then the operators only get the DNS operator role and the auditor role, and then the auditors only get the auditing, right? So I also want to point out here that I've talked about, hey, they're only going to get the commands that you allow. Well, whenever you establish this, it puts PowerShell into the no language mode. So it does restrict all the commandlets, except for there's about 8 of them, which is clear host, exit PS session, get command, get format data, get help, measure object, out default, and select object. So those are, I think it was 8 that everyone gets, and then you specify the rest. So hang on, start something right quick. So I've actually got to start my virtual machines. The machines I'm using, they like to cut out every 45 minutes. So let me get those started, and then I know. All right, so here's how it all works together. I kind of said it before, but your user is going to be sitting here at their desktop. They're going to log in, and they're going to enter PS session, and they're going to go to this server name, right? And they got to specify the endpoint of the session config file. And I'll show you how to configure all that. That session config file is going to, build that virtual administrator account. He's going to look at the roles capability file, and then he's going to take all that and he's going to present it back to you, just like that. And any questions at this time?
James, you got a question in the chat.
Yeah, okay. Is there an audit trail entry event record that shows which actual user was behind the use of JEA process instance? I'm going to say yes if you've done all the other PowerShell logging, turned on your script block logging, your I forget the other one off the top of my head. And so if you do the script block logging and the module, is it module logging? Can't remember off the top of my head. But then we also have the transcript that we told the PS session config file that we're going to use, right? So we've got all those, and I'll show you about the PS session. Also cheating. I've already got all my code built. So while that's logging in, I'll kind of show you. This is pretty much everything we're going to kind of go through. It's a lot of remote stuff. So the first thing I want to show you is whenever we go to build this thing, we're actually building a module. So just for starters, I've kind of got this JEA configs folder. Oh, I need to delete that. Okay. So that folder I just deleted was a folder whenever I was practicing earlier today. But we're going to rebuild that thing again. And we're actually going to put the module in on our demo server. So here's what I've got for the environment. I've got my domain controller, which the domain controller is only going to manage credentials and all that stuff for us. We're going to have our JEA demo server. This is where we're going to set up the PowerShell JEA, and we're going to be able to remote in and do a couple tasks, admin tasks. And I'm going to do everything from my Windows clients. I'm actually logged in as just a normal user. And before I do all that, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to build me some credentials. Because if I don't, what will happen is you'll see me fat finger the password quite and waste a lot of time. So basically what all I'm doing here is I'm creating me an admin user, storing in a variable, same with my contractor developer user, and they all use the same password as this. And I'm just converting that to a secure string and then putting it into a password variable. And then I'm building my admin creds, contractor creds, developer creds, and user creds just by creating a new object. And so now anytime I need to use credentials and I use that dash credential, I'm just going to use these variables right here because it has everything I need. It'll save time from a box opening up and me fat fingering the password multiple times. So the first thing we're going to do is I want to show you that I don't have any tricks up my sleeve. Copy. What we're going to do is we're going to remote into the domain controller. All right. So yeah, we're just going to go over to the domain controller, and I'm using my admin creds. Just to show you, I've only got copy. So all the JEA users that I've created is my admin, user, dev, and contractor. And I find this to be the easiest way. So my JEA contractor, he's only in two groups. He's in domain users and he's in JEA contractors. My JEA dev guy, he's in two groups as well. He's got his own group. So what we'll do, as you can see, he's in JEA developers and domain users. And then of course my JEA user, he's only in the users group. And then my admin, he's in two groups as well, domain admins and the domain users. All right. And just to show you, let me exit out of this. I'm back on my local box. And for those of you who haven't seen my crash course yet, anytime you remote into a box, you'll see the name of the machine you're remoted into right here. And that's how you could tell I was on the domain controller. But now that I'm back here, I'm back on my local box. So I need copy. All right. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to go to our JEA demo server as my user. As you can see, what I'll get, because I don't have permissions to use PowerShell remoting or anything, I'll get the access denied, right? And just to show you, demo. So this would normally be how you would do it. You would do that, and if I were to type in the password wrong, that you would get an error message saying the username or password is incorrect. So we're going to try and avoid that error for the rest of the night. Let's see, copy, and then just to show you that the contractor can't go in. He can't do PowerShell remoting either. He's getting access denied. And the developer, he's access denied. The only one that can get into that machine right now is the admin. Right. See, as you can see, now I'm on that JEA demo server. While I'm here, we're going to go ahead and see how many commands I have. And grab all those commands, and let's just go ahead and group those up. As you can see, as the administrator on the JEA demo server, I've got 660 commandlets that I have access to. I have or 1,045 functions, almost 300 aliases, and then your over 640 applications, meaning your external applications, the ones that are not PowerShell related, right? So now I'm going to exit. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start building that JEA module that we're going to use with all of our resource files and our do some rearranging here. So we're going to so our resource files and our roles capability file. But first, we need a place to store all that stuff. So that's what we're going to do here is we're going to create that module, create a new directory, basically in this folder that you see right here. We're going to create a modules folder with the ISSA folder within it. And then we got to create this role capabilities folder. Now this is pretty crucial. That folder has to be called role capabilities, just as it is. Not 100% sure if syntax matters, but I would make sure it was just as you see it on my screen right here. So let's go ahead and take care of that. All right, so according to my output, it says I created it. That modules folder is back. There's an ISSA folder, and there's my role capabilities. There's nothing in there just yet. So the first thing we're going to build the role capability file for our developers. We want to put them suckers back to work. We want to take their rights away as quickly as possible because they have all them admin rights, and we don't want them to have that. So all we're going to do is we're going to create a blank role capability file. That's all we did. Now, we could, if we wanted to, we could build the whole file on a command line. Here's all the different parameters you can put in there, and then fill those parameters, and you can build it all on one command line. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to show you how to do that with the session config file, and that gets noisy on the command line. So my preferred method is to build an empty role capability file, and then just kind of fill it in. And I'll show you what that looks like. Let's see if I can grab the command. Right. So all we're going to do is we're going to open it up in PowerShell ISSA. Now, if we were on my actual laptop, I would open it up in code because I know that's going to be easier for you guys to read. Because I know you guys are probably, oh, you guys can see it really well. On my screen, I'm having a hard time reading between this red and this green. So I figured you guys would have an issue with it. Actually, that's not even the right one. Let's do this again. So the one I showed you was actually one that I created last year, and we're actually going to use it because I'm not going to take the time to actually hand jam and build a role capability file. I just kind of want to show you guys what an empty one would look like. And so if there was like certain modules or something that you wanted to give your user access to, here's where it would go. And here's an example of how you would type that out. And it gives you all kinds of examples. So here's your, if you had any custom aliases that you wanted them to use, you could do that. And then here's where all your commandlets go. Functions, external commands, providers. So if you had a custom provider that you've built for your organization and you wanted them to have access to that, you could put that there. Or if for some reason why you're giving your users or somebody access to the registry, you can provide that here as well. Certificates, maybe your users need to be able to clean out certificates, so you give them access to the certificate store. The use is endless, right? I can't even think of all the ways you could possibly use it. Any specific scripts that you've built, if you wanted them to run them. Function, environmental variables. If you had custom environmental variables, or maybe ones that are currently built in, they could have access to it here and things like that. So that's that one. But like I said, these are our developers. So I've already built one for them. Paste. This is what it's going to look like. Of course, it's got its GUID. My JEA admin account built it back in 2019, right? And so here's the visible command list that we're going to give our users, our developers. We're going to give them restart computer. We're going to allow them to reboot the web server. They need to reboot the web server every now and then, right? Because they're doing maintenance or whatever, they may need to redo it. Sometimes they don't need to just reboot the web server. Sometimes they just need to reboot a specific service. So I know these aren't web developer services, but I didn't feel like building a website. So what we're going to do is we're going to give them restart service, and we're going to only allow them the name parameter. And we're going to give them, they can only reboot the spooler service and the bit service. If they try to restart any other service, it's going to throw an error, and it's going to be really great. I'll show you the error messages. I love error messages. I learned so much from them. And then we're going to go ahead and give them the who am I for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe they log in and they forget who they are. So maybe they need to remember that. Or it's because I was sitting in class one time, or no, I was on a red teaming event one time, and our lead red teamer, I thought he was going to kill me because I got onto a box and I wanted to find out what account I just compromised. And so I typed in who am I, and he about threw a fit. He's like, no, don't use it. Only bad guys use who am I. I'm like, I don't know. I've used who am I for years. I never considered myself a bad guy, but it's there. And that's all we're going to give them, right? So let's go ahead and minimize that. And let's go ahead and build our role capability file for our contractor. Now remember, our contractor is that guy who just randomly shows up out of the blue when you're doing 50 million things and stands at your desk and looking at you with those weird eyes going, you boot my computer, boot my server, right? We want to get rid of that. Let's stop him from doing that. So let's go ahead and build that thing. And as you can see, I'm not going to show you an empty one. I'm going to show you the one that we're going to use. Right? I'm going to show you what his looks like. Copy. I call this, we're doing the Martha Stewart thing, right? We built a blank one, but then I've got one pre-baked for you. So here's our contractor role capability file. Again, I built it back in 2019. The only thing we gave them was restart computer. So maybe, just maybe, he'll quit coming over to our desk and he has to stay in his own office that's 15 minutes away, right? And as you can see, that's the only thing I gave him. So with that being done, let's go ahead and look, and let's create that session file. I told you guys that we're going to build this session file on the command line. So here it is. We're establishing the new session file. If you can see, here's the two here, role capabilities module. Okay, so let's bring that down here. So this role capabilities file is it has to sit on this session file has to sit on the outside of your role capability file, because it knows that from my current location, I need to go into roles capability and look at all the role capability files. And that's why that has to be there. If you put your session file anywhere else, this PowerShell JEA thing's not going to work, right? So we want, we're going to give them the session type of restricted remote server. So it means it's going to kind of lock it down. So to to Steve's question, here's one way we're going to log who did what. We've got this we're building this transcript directory within the module of ISSA. So anytime anybody does any PowerShell JEA stuff, it's going to log it on the transcript. And then it'll also log it in the Windows event viewer if you've got the other things turned on. It was the script block logging, and still can't think of the other one. I'll probably remember it before the end of the day. And then we're using the switch run as virtual account. We're actually making that true. And then here's where we're defining which roles go to which security groups, right? Remember I told you our developer sits in the JEA developers group? Well, this is how you tie the JEA developers group with the developer roles capability file. Here's how you tie the JEA contractors with the role capability file of contractors. So we're actually building the whole thing on the command line. Just imagine if we were doing this with the role capability files, with all the things that you could do. I see that as being a nightmare. But your mileage may vary, and you might be like, nope, not using the GUI at all, typing it all out. I say good luck to you. So we've built that, and let's go ahead and take a look at what it actually looks like. So we are copying that. All right. And here's what it looks like on the inside. Now, this is not pre-baked. This is what we actually just built just now, right? We told it where the transcript directory was. We told it, yes, we wanted a virtual account. And then for the session type, I can't remember exactly what each of these session types are, but I do know for PowerShell JEA, you want restricted remote server. But the other two options are empty and default. I would have to look those up to actually remember what those were. But then here's our role definitions, just kind of like we've seen on just like we saw on the command line. So now that that's done. So now we have our module built. We have our PowerShell JEA built. So now what we want to do, now what we're going to do is we're going to copy all these files over to the remote server. Oh, no. The first thing I have to do is copy my pre-baked role capability files to our folder. So this is kind of neat. If we sit here and watch this, if you look at the timestamps, the 1216, I mean, we just created those. But what we're going to do, now look at those timestamps. So I actually updated the files, I guess, back in February, March. So I must have did some work on them in March. But these are the ones that we built, or that I built. They were pre-baked. They were Martha Stewarted. All right. So first thing I want to show you, for the people who've not experienced PowerShell remoting, or who've not seen the demo in my other class, what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of prove to you that this stuff is really, really cool. So what we're doing is we're going to invoke a command, meaning, hey, I'm going to send this command to the remote server, and I want you to do these things, right? And we're going to the JEA demo server. I have to go as my admin because remember, I don't have any restricted remote sessions set up just yet. That's what we're working on. So we're going to use our admin creds. And basically what we're doing is we're going to get, I want to see what's in the C program files. I want to see what's in the modules folder of that machine. I want to see what's already there. If you guys aren't, if you're not used to the PowerShell terminology, the get child item is similar to the ls in Linux or Mac. That's pretty much it. As a matter of fact, PowerShell has uses ls as an alias for get child item, which causes problems when you're on a Linux machine sometimes. But as you can see, the only modules we have installed are this operation validation, package management, pester, PowerShell get, and the PS read line. So here we go. So again, for you guys who've been to my crash course, if you remember, this will be a good refresher. Remember, we can establish remote sessions in a variable, if you guys remember. And then for you guys who haven't or don't know, well, you can create a variable that stores all your remote sessions. But in our example, we're only using one computer. The significance of what this thing can do, instead of this one computer, you can put another command within there that says get AD computer star. So what that would do is it would put every computer name in your Active Directory into, or it would establish a remote PowerShell session to that computer and then store it in this variable here. And of course, we're going to do admin creds. And you don't have to do just get AD computer. If you had all your servers or computers in a CSV list or even a text document, you could actually put that here. You could read that in right here and then store all those or create those remote sessions and then store all those sessions within your variable, which comes in extremely handy when you start doing other advanced tasks like we're going to do here in just a second. So if I do dollar demo server version, as you can see, I've got an open connection to my JEA demo server. So now with this variable, I can copy things to my server. So for you Linux-minded people, that would be similar to SCP, right? So we're going to SCP some things. So I'm copying, everything that was in this folder to C programs, which essentially looks like the same directory, or it's actually copying it to that modules directory, but it's to the session of what's in this variable. So for us today, the session is just this one server. Again, the magnitude of this is we could have just done this on 100 machines if we read in a text document, or maybe 1,000 machines because we just read it in from Active Directory. That's the magnitude of the remote sessions. That flips as well on the security side. If you need to get running processes or you need to do some other findings, security work on 100 machines, storm in a variable, and then just do what you got to do. But now we will see, if we hit our up arrow key. Yeah, so if we look at the modules folder again, now we see we have our ISSA module in there. All right, so now it's all done. No, we're not done yet. We just established the files. We just got the files over there. The next thing we need to do is, see, I did that. We actually have to establish the, we have to tell WinRM about that session file, right? So what we're going to do first is we're going to see what's already established. What does WinRM already know about? What remoting capabilities does it already know about? That's what this get ps session config is. So for those of you who were in my crash course class, remember, I think toward the end of the day, I had mentioned when we were talking about PowerShell remoting, I said, hey, there's some advanced configurations for PowerShell remoting. That's essentially what this is. This is an advanced PowerShell remoting technique, I guess, top. But PowerShell already knows about some config files and already some advanced remote sessions. And that's these, right? It already knows about all these. So what we're going to do is we're going to register. We're going to register our configuration files. All right. So what we're doing is, again, I'm sending my command to the remote machine. Hey, machine, I want you to run these commands. Of course, using my admin credentials. So I'm going to register the PS session name. Now, we have not seen this name yet. So this session name could be anything you want. You can design your sessions to be per group, maybe per task, whatever you want. This is the ISSA demo. So I'm going to say our session name is ISS demo. And then, of course, I have to give it the path of where my restricted session config file is, right? So with that, I hit enter. Now this gets tricky because sometimes I'll get an error just like that, which is kind of bogus. Let's see, reporting because either thread has exited or, oh, you know what? Did my machine, nope. Well, let's just see if it registered. Okay, so when this happens, what I found we have to do is copy and just restart that service. Hang on, let's running. Register. I wonder. Okay, let's do this. Let's unregister that thing, reboot it, and see if it fixes it. All right, so let's do that, and then we. Either is the thread. Yeah, let's do this file. All right, we're just gonna reboot it right quick. While that's rebooting, any questions up to this point? I guess this is what happens whenever you go through your demos, earlier in the day. I'm sure there's something I didn't clean out. All right, so let's do this. Let's call it ISSA demo 2. Let's do this. The following WinRM process. Kerberos authentication, you know, okay. Oh. There we go. Thanks for letting me know I misspelled something. Let's see. Now I lost track where I was at. We're registering our service. That's right. So all we need to do is this part right here. Copy. Oh, it already exists. So let's do demo 2. Because it already exists. So I think I just got bamboozled by what I was just telling you guys a minute ago about the bogus error. Let's see, is it registered? Yeah, I was bamboozled. So both of our, so now we've actually got 2 config files or sessions that we could use. All right, we're back on track. All right, we did that, we did that. Okay, so I'm back on the user box. Now, if I enter PS session, right, copy. So I'm trying to establish that remote PowerShell session to the JEA server, which we know is going to work because I was just on there as an administrator, right? but this time I'm going to use my user creds, and I'm specifying the session file that we just created. And I get access denied, which means I don't have permissions. And if we change that from user creds to somebody who does have creds, right? Let's do the contractor. No, yeah, I don't like doing that. Let's do the developers first. They got to get to work. But let's say we have a developer. We say, hey, whenever you do your remote PowerShell session, make sure you specify this session name. Let's say he forgets and he does it without it. He hits enter and he gets access denied. And then he comes crying to you, says, you told me it would work. It doesn't work. Why are you kicking me out? Or whatever excuse he comes up with, right? We've all heard them, right? And then you say, did you type in the session? And he says, yeah, I typed in the session. And you say, prove it to me. And he types in the session. And then all of a sudden, he's in. All because he's typed in that session name. So now that we are here, what can we do? We did that. So let's see how many commands we have. Let's copy. So we're going to get command, kind of like what we did in the beginning whenever I was an administrator, right? I hit it and it says group object is not recognized the name of a commandlet. But we just used it earlier. Anybody want to take a guess on why it says that? All right, so there's silence, so I'll just tell you.
You haven't given them rights to do it.
There you go. That's exactly it. We never configured our role capability file to give them the group object commandlet. So if we actually take this out, there we go. So that's what they get. We didn't see the aliases or the external applications earlier because we grouped it all up. We weren't able to group it this time. But as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different PowerShell things we can do. 8 of them was already given to us. What we gave to the developers were restart service and restart computer, right? So now let's play around with some restart service. I meant to do, hang on, let me pull up a quick service right quick. We're going to get that Xbox game service. How about that? We're going to get attack. Let's just go ahead and get all the services, right? Get service is not recognized as the name of a commandlet. Again, it's because we didn't allow for the developers to have that service. So this is what I was talking about earlier whenever I say the virtual account that we're actually using can see that there really is a get service. It's just not presenting it to the user logged in because he's not authorized. But we can restart the bit service, right? All right, so let's start that. Okay, that seemed to work. Unfortunately, we can't find out if it's restarting because we don't have that permission. So let's see if we can restart the WinRM service. Anybody want to venture on what's going to happen? I guess a more direct question would be, if we restart service, is it going to kick us out?
Hey James, a question just came through. Why is one a function and the other restart is a commandlet?
It's just the way they were built. I have to go back up. So yeah, I'd actually have to look at the code. That's a Windows thing. I didn't build those. I'd have to go back and research it. But man, now I'm gonna be bugged by that question all night. So here we go. So we are not allowed to restart the WinRM service. And a matter of fact, our error message says WinRM does not belong to your set of services you can reboot, right? Or restart. So that should give our user, if they read the error message, that'll tell them exactly what they can do and what they can't do. And you know how earlier I said the virtual accounts, the virtual admins that are built on the fly can tie back to your user. If we do a who am I, here it is. This is the account that got built. And as you can see that it ties back to my domain account of JEA demo, JEA.dev. So while I'm here and thinking about it, let's go over here to the demo server right quick. Let me get logged in. I'll show you that transcript. Program files, PowerShell, modules, ISSA, and see, here's that transcript file. And you can see when the transcript started, you can see the username who started it, and what virtual account they were using whenever they did said things, right? Let's see. So we can see that we ran git commands, exit PS session. Oh, this was the output. So this is a great thing about transcripts. So we ran git command, and this was the output that was presented to us. So that's pretty great. So the second thing, I don't know why it ran it twice. Is that the error message? Yeah, and who am I? And so the information you need is in the transcript. It's really hard to parse human, but in some of the places I was following, somebody's actually working on a tool to help parse this to make it extremely easy. But if this is all you have, all the information is there. So let's go back. All right. So that's that one. We did that. Let's go ahead and exit out. And then, so with the contractor, what I'm gonna do with him is, instead of actually entering into the PS session, which is like the SSH, we're gonna use our invoke commands again. What this actually represents is, imagine if we needed to do this on 100 computers at once, or 1,000 computers. That's what invoke command does. It's a one command to many different things. Or is what Jeffrey Snover says, that I really think like, is he makes it a Star Trek reference. He goes, make it so, number one. So it's one command just out there just doing its thing. So here we go. We're not doing that. We're gonna do this one. Copy. So here, so again, we see the restart service is not recognized because we don't have the permissions to do that. Well, let's see if we know who we are. Who am I? I'm not telling you is what it says. It says you don't need to know who you are. Only bad guys run that command. However, there is one command we can run. We hit enter. We come back over here to our demo server. Oh no. Oh, because I'm logged in. Of course. And there it goes. Right? So that's pretty much PowerShell JEA, just enough administration. You're giving just enough administration for somebody to do their job, is what we're doing. And just remember, believe it or not, when I've done things like this in the past with other things I've worked on, it seems like we're empowering our users to do things for themselves. And believe it or not, they actually like it. That's why I've always said I enjoy empowering the users, but keeping it within safety. In my world, we call it the left and right limits, and keeping it safe. Plus, way back when I first started learning PowerShell, I came across this lazy admin concept. And let me tell you, I am one lazy admin. And it's not that I'm lazy because I don't do my job. I'm lazy because I try and automate my job so I don't. But just remember, when we do empower our users, you know, it kind of makes them feel good. It makes them almost makes them feel like they've got the power to do whatever they want, right? So here's all my references where I've gotten all my material from, at least for this presentation. I do follow a lot of PowerShell, a lot of the people on the PowerShell team. I follow them on Twitter. So as they're releasing things, I'm actually retweeting their stuff. So if you'd like, you can follow me on Twitter. My tweets end up out on my LinkedIn. And then any type of blogs or like this video will end up out on my website as well. And I'll also end up putting it out on my my YouTube channel that I just started, because there's a lot of other things I've got ideated over here. So if you'd like, go ahead and follow me and all that good stuff. Other than that, the only event that I have coming up that I'm aware of is B-Sides Charm 2021. And the only reason I know about that is because I was supposed to do my workshop back in 2020, but because of COVID, they pushed it and then they just canceled it. And they said anybody who was accepted last year is going to come back and actually do it this year. So I'm planning on being at B-Sides this April if you want to come do my 6-hour, 8-hour PowerShell crash course and learn some of the basics. Other than that, if there's any questions, I am here.